Okay, so this video will walk through a few of the problems from the homework. This one is number 2. Okay, so the law of sines is pretty simple when we set it up. It just says, I'm going to slide this down a little bit. It says the sine of A, okay, now A is an angle. Oops, that's not writing. There we go. Over the side A, which is opposite, is going to equal the sine of B, and remember again, this is an angle, B is an angle, over side B, and that's going to equal the sine of C, which is also an angle. That's probably not a very good arrow. We'll try that one more time. There we go. This is an angle over side C, and this is a side. Okay, side. Okay, so in order for the law of sines to work, I need an angle and a side that are opposite of one another. So for example, I have A, so the opposite side would be A, the little a, okay? So I could say the sine of 70 over side A. Okay, because that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking right here. I'm trying to find side BC. I'm looking for this side. That's why I chose this one. Okay, now the only information that I've got, or the only side that I do have, because in order to use the law of sines, you need an angle and a side that's opposite. I need to figure out this angle right there, because this would be opposite of my side. So that's going to be C. And I know that there's 180 degrees in a triangle, so I could do 180 minus 70 minus 58, and I think that gives me 52 degrees. Okay, so I could say that angle C is 52. Okay, so now that I have this information, I could say the sine of my angle, which is 52 degrees, is going to equal, or over my side length, which is 26 feet, is going to equal the sine of 70 over A. And now I can solve my ratio. And the way I'm going to do that is just by cross multiplying. So I'm going to say, I'm going to multiply these two together. A times the sine of 52 equals 26 times the sine of 70. Okay, now I'm trying to get A by itself. Okay, and I'll show you how to throw it in your calculator pretty quick. Okay, I'm trying to get A by itself. So I'm going to divide this side by sine of 52, and this whole thing by the sine of 52. Okay, so now when you plug it in your calculator, you can just plug this into your calculator. Now make sure you put parentheses around your sine, around your angle measurements. And so when you plug it in, you should end up with like 31, roughly 31 feet, 31.0047, which for what we're doing is close enough to 31 feet. Okay, one thing to note on your calculator, make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. If you need help with it, there's you can either email me and you can let me know what kind of calculator you're using, or if you're using your phone. As long as it's an iPhone, I can help you with it. I'm not very good with the Androids, but I can help you with an iPhone if you're using an iPhone. But make sure you're in degree mode. That one's very, very important. Make sure you're in degree mode. And it's like this, degree, not radian. Okay, all right. Let's work through number 6. Okay, so number 6 looks like this. Okay, something like that. And this is 33 kilometers. This is 58. This is 105. And then it has labels of A, B, and C. Okay, and we're looking for AC. Okay, so AC, this is the side we're looking for. Okay, and it looks like we have all of the information that we need. We have this angle, and this side is opposite. So I could say a sine of 105 over 33 is going to equal, we'll do this in green, 58 over this side. So I could say the sine of 58 over my side length, which we'll just call, in this case, we'll call it b, right? Okay, so when I cross multiply here, so I end up with b times sine of 105 equals 33 times the sine of 58. And then I'm going to divide both sides by the sine of 105. That would cancel that out. And sine of 105. Okay, and then I can throw this whole thing into my calculator. Make sure you have parentheses around your angle measurements. Okay, 33 times sine of 58 divided by sine of 105. Oops, not 15. Excuse me. Excuse me. Okay, gives me 28.9728. So in this case, I think, what do the directions say? Round to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to call this one 29 kilometers. Okay. All right. Trying to think. Just kind of remember, and I don't know if you remember back from secondary too, remember sine is just a ratio. It's just a number. It's just kind of a fancy way to write a number. It would be something like this. If I wanted to write 6 as 10 minus 4 plus 6 minus 8 plus 2, I could write that whole thing as, what would that be? So 4 is 12 minus 8 is 4 plus 2. Yeah, so this is 6. Okay, so this is one way to write 6. It's just a really fancy way to write 6. When I have something like the sine of 105, it's just a really fancy way of writing the number 0.965926. It's just another way of writing it. So sine, don't be afraid of the sine and cosine. We'll do cosines in a few days. But yeah, it's just a number. Okay, so let's work through one more. Okay, so I'm going to look at number 7. Now this number 7 is a little bit different. I mean, we're still doing the same thing. But this time we're trying to find an angle measurement rather than a side length. 34. So I have A, B, and C. Okay, so if I'm labeling this, here's my little b, here's my little a, and here's my little c. And it's asking me to find angle A, so I'm looking for this one right here. So I know I'm going to use these two. So I'm looking for the angle, so I could say the sine of A over 25 is going to equal, now the only other one that I have information on that are opposites is B, so that's one I'm going to have to use. Sine of 95 over 34. Okay, so we're going to follow the same steps that we followed a few minutes ago. We're going to cross multiply here, and I end up with 34 times the sine of A equals 25 times the sine of 95. Now I'm trying to get A by itself, but it's kind of stuck with my sine for just a minute. Okay, well, let's get rid of the 34. That would be a good thing. So we'll divide both sides by 34. Okay, so now I end up with this. The sine of A equals 25 times the sine of 95 divided by 34. So it ends up being something like 0.732496. Okay, now the way we get A by itself is we do what's called an arc sine. Okay, so I'm going to do arc sine of both sides. Okay, now the arc sine is the same thing as sine to the negative 1 power, the inverse sine. So you could call it the arc sine, you could call it the inverse sine. So inverse sine of sine A equals the inverse sine of 0.732496. Okay, now this arc sine and the sine cancel each other out, and I'm left with A, and then I can throw this into my calculator. Okay, it would be the arc sine or the inverse sine. Okay, so the arc sine of 0.732496, it gives me 47.0961 degrees, or roughly 47.1 degrees. Okay, so like I said, finding the angles are just a little bit different. You have an extra step to do. So let's do one more with an angle. Okay, so I have, this one's number 8. Okay, so I've got 114 degrees. I have 27 feet. I have 13 feet, and I'm looking for angle A. That happens to be angle A. Okay, so I've got this. So here, these are my two opposites, and I don't know what angle A is, so I'm just going to call it sine of A over 13. Sorry, I can't read my own handwriting. That wasn't the eraser. Let's try this one more time. Okay, so sine A over 13 equals sine of 114 over 27. There we go. That's why it looked like 134 or 131, because I didn't put the T on it. Okay, so now we're going to cross multiply, same thing we've always been doing. So I end up with 27 times the sine of A equals 13 times the sine of 114. Okay, and then I can divide both sides by 27. Okay, so I end up with the sine of A equals 13 times sine of 114 over 27. Okay, so I can throw this part right here into my calculator. And when I do that, I get 0.439855. Okay, so I have the sine of A equals that. Now remember, the sine of A, I can't just divide by sine. I have to do what's called the arc sine, or the inverse sine. I think on your calculator it probably looks like this. So I'm going to do the inverse sine of both sides. That cancels that out, leaves me A. And then I have to throw this part in my calculator of 0.439855. And that gives me 26.1 degrees. Okay. All right, so that kind of walked you through a good 4 of them. 11, 13, let's see. 11's the same. 13 is solving for all your side lengths. I want you to finish working through these before I do number 13 for you, or 13 and 17. It's just kind of doing all of your sides instead of just all your sides and angles instead of just one of your sides. So you'd have to use the law of sines a couple times. All right, let me know if you need more help with these.